The dispatch center at 2:47 a.m. feels like the inside of a submarine, all humming electronics and recycled air. I've been staring at the same incident report for 20 minutes, but the words keep blurring together. Night shifts do that to you after a while. Turn your brain into oatmeal. The phone rings, cutting through the white noise of police scanners and air conditioning. I reach for it automatically, muscle memory from 6 months of doing this job. 911, what's your emergency? There's someone watching my house. The voice belongs to an older woman, shaky but determined. He's been standing across the street for over an hour. I pull up a new incident screen and start typing. Ma'am, can you give me your name and address? Mildred Kelly, 1247 Elm Street. And before you ask, no, I'm not some paranoid old lady seeing things. This man is 8 feet tall if he's an inch. My fingers pause over the keyboard. 8 feet. Right. Can you describe what you're seeing, Mrs. Kelly? He's just standing there under the streetlight, but he's too tall for it. The light hits his shoulders, not his head, and his arms. She trails off. What about his arms? They hang wrong. Too long. Like someone stretched them. I finish typing the basic information and dispatch Officer McCormick to the address. Standard procedure for suspicious person calls, even weird ones. Mrs. Kelly, I'm sending an officer to check it out. Can you stay on the line with me? Yes, I'd like that very much. There's something in her voice that makes me sit up straighter. I've taken thousands of calls in the past 6 months. Drunk college kids, domestic disputes, fender benders, the occasional actual emergency. You learn to read people through their voices. Mildred Kelly isn't hysterical or confused. She's scared, but she's also absolutely certain about what she's seeing. Has this person made any threatening gestures toward you? No, he just stands there. But it's not natural the way he stands. Too still, like he's not breathing. I check McCormick's location on the computer. Still 5 minutes out. Are your doors and windows locked? Of course they are. I'm not stupid. A pause. Oh, God. What is it, Mrs. Kelly? He's looking right at me, right at my window. How can he see me from that distance? The hair on my arm stands up. Something about the way she says it. Like she's watching something that shouldn't be possible. Mrs. Kelly, step away from the window and... Her scream cuts through the phone line like a knife. Not a startled yelp or a gasp of surprise. A full-throated scream of pure terror that makes me jerk the headset away from my ear. Then the line goes to static. But it's not normal static. It has a rhythm to it, almost like breathing. In and out, in and out. I've heard every kind of radio interference you can imagine. Storms, electrical problems, cell tower issues. This doesn't sound like any of them. Mrs. Kelly, are you there? The rhythmic static continues for another 30 seconds, then cuts to a dial tone. I immediately try calling her back. It rings once, twice, 3 times, then goes to an automated message saying the number is temporarily out of service. I try again. Same thing. McCormick's voice crackles through the radio. Dispatch, I'm at 1247 Elm Street. House appears dark and quiet. No suspicious persons in the area. Copy that. The caller reported an 8-foot-tall individual across the street from her residence. Yeah, I don't see anyone matching that description. Want me to make contact with the resident? Affirmative. Mrs. Mildred Kelly called in the report. She was on the line when the call disconnected. I wait, drumming my fingers on the desk. The incident report glows on my screen, cursor blinking in the notes field. What am I supposed to write? Caller reported impossibly tall person, screamed, then line went to weird static. Dispatch, I've got a problem here. Go ahead, McCormick. No answer at the door. I can see through the front window. Place looks empty. No lights, no movement. Neighbors say they haven't seen Mrs. Kelly in a couple days. My stomach drops. A couple days? She just called 20 minutes ago. That's what they're telling me. Mrs. Henderson next door says Kelly's been gone since Tuesday. Thought maybe she went to visit family. I stare at the phone log on my screen. The call came in at 2:47 a.m. It's now 3:23 a.m. The timestamp doesn't lie. Any signs of forced entry? Negative. Everything looks secure. You want me to request a welfare check? Standard procedure would be to have him look around the perimeter, maybe call for a supervisor to authorize entry if we had real cause for concern. But something about this whole situation feels wrong in a way I can't put my finger on. Do a perimeter check and clear the scene. File a report for suspicious circumstances. Copy that. I hang up and immediately pull the call recording. Every 911 call gets automatically recorded and stored. I need to hear that static again. Need to confirm I didn't imagine how strange it sounded. The playback starts normally. Mildred's voice comes through clear, describing the figure across the street. Her scream is just as bone-chilling the second time. Then the static begins. I listen to it 3 more times, adjusting the audio levels and running it through different filters. The rhythm is definitely there, a pattern that sounds almost organic, like something breathing, or maybe like a heartbeat slowed way down. I save the file and mark it for technical review, though I doubt the IT guys will find anything useful. They'll probably tell me it's interference from a microwave or something equally mundane. The rest of my shift passes quietly, too quietly. I keep expecting the phone to ring with another weird call, but it stays silent until my replacement shows up at 6 a.m. 3 nights later, I'm back at the same desk when the phone rings at 1:15 a.m. 911, what's your emergency? There's someone outside my building. Young woman, Hispanic accent, trying to keep her voice steady. He's huge, like impossibly huge. Every muscle in my body tenses. Ma'am, what's your name and location? Lisa Reyes, 4429 Woodland Avenue, apartment 3B. This guy has been standing in the parking lot for the past hour. He's got to be 8 feet tall, maybe taller. I'm already typing, already dispatching units to the address. 2 patrol cars this time. Can you describe what you're seeing? He's just standing there between the cars, but he's taller than the streetlights. His proportions are all wrong. His arms hang down past his knees. The description hits me like ice water. 8 feet tall. Wrong proportions. Arms too long. Exactly what Mildred Kelly reported. Lisa, I need you to stay away from windows and keep your doors locked. Officers are en route. Okay, but oh shit, he's moving. What's happening? He's walking toward the building. How is he that tall? It doesn't make sense. I can hear her breathing getting faster, panic creeping into her voice. The responding units are still 4 minutes out. Lisa, where are you in your apartment? Living room. I can see him through the window. He's at the front door now. How did he get there so fast? Stay calm. Help is almost there. He's inside. Oh God, he's inside the building. I can hear footsteps in the hallway. My hands are shaking as I type updates for the responding officers. I've never had a caller describe an active break-in with this level of detail and terror. Lisa, is there somewhere you can barricade yourself? A bathroom or a bedroom with a lock? I'm going to the bathroom. I can see his shadow under my door. It's moving. I hear her running, the sound of a door slamming, a lock clicking. I'm in the bathroom. I can hear him in my apartment. He's breaking things. The sound comes through the phone. Wood splintering, furniture being thrown around. Then heavy footsteps getting closer. He's at the bathroom door. I can see his shadow underneath. It's too big. The shadow is too big for the space. Lisa, officers are pulling up now. Hold on. Her scream cuts through the phone line, identical to Mildred's. Pure, primal terror. Then the same rhythmic static fills my headset. I rip off the headphones and grab the radio. All units responding to 4429 Woodland Avenue, expedite. Caller is in immediate danger. The static continues for 45 seconds this time before cutting to a dial tone. I try calling back immediately. The number is out of service. Dispatch, this is Unit 23. We're at 4429 Woodland Avenue. Building appears secure. No signs of disturbance. Unit 23. The caller reported an intruder in her apartment. 3rd floor, apartment 3B. Copy. We'll check it out. I wait, staring at the phone like it might ring again. Like Lisa might call back and tell me it was all a mistake, that she's fine, that the 8-foot-tall man with the wrong proportions was just her imagination. Dispatch, we've got a problem. Go ahead. Apartment 3B is empty. Door was unlocked, no signs of forced entry or struggle. Looks like nobody's been here in days. Neighbors say they haven't seen the tenant recently. I close my eyes and lean back in my chair. 2 calls, 2 impossible descriptions, 2 women who vanished without a trace. Any personal belongings in the apartment? Negative. Place is completely cleared out like someone moved out properly. But Lisa was just on the phone with me. I heard her breathing, heard her terror, heard the sounds of someone breaking into her apartment. The timestamp on my screen shows the call ended 6 minutes ago. I pull up both call recordings and listen to them back to back. Mildred Kelly and Lisa Reyes, 3 nights apart, describing the same impossible figure. Both calls ending with identical screams and the same rhythmic static. The static that sounds like breathing. I save both files and mark them for review, knowing nobody will believe what I'm hearing. How do you write a report about something that leaves no evidence? How do you explain that 2 people called for help and then vanished as if they never existed? I stare at the incident reports on my screen, cursor blinking in the notes field. Standard procedure says to document what happened, file the reports, and move on to the next call. But there's nothing standard about this. I pull up the dispatch database and start searching. 7 similar calls over the past 2 months, all buried in routine reports that nobody bothered to flag as unusual. Probably because they sound insane when you read them cold. Mrs. Chen on Maple Street reported a giant man standing in her yard. Call ended in static. House found empty. David Martinez saw someone too tall to be human outside his apartment. Same static. Same empty residence. The Hendersons called about a figure that didn't fit under the streetlight properly. You can guess how that ended. Each report follows the exact same pattern. Impossibly tall figure. Wrong proportions. Static interference. Missing callers. And every responding officer filed it as a welfare check with no signs of disturbance. I'm printing the 7th report when the phone rings at 2:15 a.m. 911, what's your emergency? You're Floyd Singh. The voice belongs to a woman, maybe 40, with the kind of exhaustion that comes from not sleeping for weeks. Former patrol officer, moved to dispatch 6 months ago after the shooting on 5th Street. My blood turns to ice. Ma'am, how do you... Mildred Kelly, Lisa Reyes, David Martinez, Mrs. Chen, the Hendersons. Should I keep going? I can't breathe. Nobody outside the department should know those names, especially not connected to each other. Who is this? Fern Harvey. I've been tracking this thing for weeks, and now it's tracking me. Her voice is steady, but I can hear papers rustling in the background, like she's reading from notes. It targets people who call for help, feeds on their hope that someone will come save them. Ms. Harvey, I need you to... You're different because you used to be a cop. You actually want to help instead of just following procedure. That's why it's been watching you. The room feels smaller suddenly. Watching me. Through every call, every recording. You think that static is random interference? It's been listening to you, learning your voice, your patterns. You're part of its pattern now. I look around the dispatch center like the walls might have eyes. The humming electronics sound different now, more deliberate. Where are you calling from? 4429 Woodland Avenue. Same building where Lisa Reyes lived before it took her. She pauses and I hear something that might be footsteps in the background. You have 20 minutes before it takes me too. Ms. Harvey, stay on the line. I'm dispatching units. No. Her voice cuts through my training like a knife. Units won't help. They never do. The thing leaves no evidence, remember? But you could come. You could see it for yourself. Every protocol I've ever learned screams at me to keep her talking, send backup, follow procedure. But procedure hasn't saved anyone yet. Why are you telling me this? Because you need to know what you're really dealing with. And because she trails off, then comes back stronger. Because you need to be more than just a voice on the phone. You need to prove you can still protect people. The words hit like a punch to the gut. She knows about the shooting, about why I'm stuck behind this desk instead of out there where I belong. 20 minutes, Floyd. 4429 Woodland Avenue, apartment 3B. Come alone or don't come at all. The line cuts to static. Not the rhythmic breathing kind this time, just dead air that somehow feels alive. I stare at the phone for exactly 10 seconds, then grab my keys. I know I'm not supposed to leave my post. I know this violates every rule in the book. I know my supervisor will have my badge if he finds out. But I also know that 7 people called for help and got nothing but empty houses and missing person reports that nobody follows up on. I know that whatever's happening, it's real, and it's been watching me through every call I've taken. I know that 6 months ago I froze when my partner needed me most, and he's still in physical therapy because I couldn't make the right choice fast enough. I'm not freezing this time. The parking lot is empty, except for my Honda and a few other cars belonging to the skeleton crew. I start the engine and pull out onto streets that feel different at 2:30 a.m. Wider, emptier, like the city is holding its breath. 4429. Woodland Avenue is 18 minutes away if I follow the speed limit. I don't follow the speed limit. My hands shake on the steering wheel as I drive through neighborhoods that look normal in daylight but feel wrong in the dark. Every streetlight seems dimmer than it should be. Every shadow looks like it might be hiding something 8 feet tall with arms that hang too long. I keep checking the clock on my dashboard. 15 minutes, 12 minutes, 8 minutes. What am I going to find when I get there? Another empty apartment with no signs of struggle? Or something worse? Something that explains why 7 people vanished without leaving any evidence behind. The radio crackles with routine calls from other districts. Domestic disturbance on Oak Street, possible break-in at a convenience store, normal problems with normal solutions. I wish I was handling those calls instead of racing towards something that doesn't follow any rules I understand. But Fern Harvey was right about one thing. I need to be more than just a voice on the phone. I need to prove I can still protect people, even if the threat is something that shouldn't exist. Even if I'm probably driving straight into whatever took the others. The GPS announces I've reached my destination just as the clock hits 2:33 a.m., 2 minutes to spare. I park across the street from 4429 Woodland Avenue and look up at the 3rd floor windows. One of them glows with warm yellow light. Apartment 3B. I park across the street and stare up at the 3rd floor window glowing with warm yellow light. My hands won't stop shaking on the steering wheel. 2 patrol cars sit in front of the building, their light bars dark. I recognize the unit numbers, Mills and Kowalski. Good officers, both of them, reliable. I cross the street and approach the nearest cruiser. Mills is sitting in the driver's seat, staring straight ahead through the windshield. I tap on his window. He rolls it down without looking at me. Sing. What's the situation? Building appears empty, haven't made entry yet. Something in his voice sounds flat, mechanical, like he's reading from a script. Any contact with the caller? Negative. Kowalski gets out of the 2nd car and walks over, but he won't meet my eyes either, just stares at a point somewhere past my left shoulder. Dispatch said you were coming. I never told dispatch I was coming. I left without authorization, without backup, without following any protocol in the book. Right, I'll take point. Neither officer objects. They should object. A dispatcher has no authority to take lead on an active call, especially one who's supposed to be manning the phones right now. But they just nod and fall in behind me as we approach the building. The front door is unlocked. It swings open at my touch, revealing a narrow hallway with stairs leading up. The air inside feels different, thinner somehow, like it's been drained of something essential. "Third floor," I tell them, though they already know. We climb in silence. Our footsteps echo wrong in the stairwell, each sound seeming to hang in the air longer than it should. The building feels completely empty, not just of people, but of life itself. No hum of refrigerators, no ticking clocks, no settling wood. Just silence that presses against my eardrums. Apartment 3B sits at the end of the third-floor hallway. The door stands slightly ajar, yellow light spilling through the gap. I push it open and step inside. The apartment is small but neat. Living room with a couch and coffee table, kitchenette along one wall, short hallway leading to what must be the bedroom and bathroom. Everything looks normal except for the complete absence of personal belongings. No photos, no books, no mail on the counter, like someone moved out and cleaned thoroughly. But Fern Harvey called me from here 20 minutes ago. Mills checked the kitchen, Kowalski bathroom. I move toward the bedroom, my footsteps muffled by thin carpet. The door is open, revealing a space as empty as the rest of the apartment. No bed, no dresser, no clothes in the closet. Then I see it on the windowsill, a cell phone. I pick it up and press the home button. The screen lights up, showing the recent calls list. My dispatch number sits at the top, time-stamped 18 minutes ago. The phone is still warm. Heavy footsteps echo from the hallway behind me. Not the measured pace of police officers, but something slower, more deliberate. Each step seems to shake the floor slightly. "Mills? Kowalski?" No response. I turn toward the bedroom door, but the hallway beyond looks different. The ceiling appears lower, as if the building itself has compressed. The walls seem closer together. "Mills!" My voice echoes strangely, like I'm shouting into a tunnel. I walk back toward the living room, but the apartment feels larger now. The distance is stretched. It takes too many steps to reach the front door. The door I left open is now closed. I try the handle. Locked from the outside, though that's impossible since I have the only key, and there was no key to begin with. Through the front window, I can see the street below. My Honda sits exactly where I parked it, but both patrol cars have vanished. The street is empty except for my car and something standing beside it. A figure that has to bend its neck to fit under the streetlight. Even from 3 stories up, I can tell it's massive. 8 feet tall, maybe more. Its proportions are wrong in ways that hurt to look at directly. Arms that hang past its knees, shoulders too broad for its frame, a head that seems both too large and too small at the same time. It's looking up at me. I step back from the window, but I can still feel its attention like a weight pressing against my chest. The thing moves with fluid, impossible grace, each step covering more ground than should be physically possible. It's heading for the building entrance. I run to the apartment door and pull at the handle, but it won't budge. The lock mechanism doesn't even exist on this side. Just smooth metal where the hardware should be. Heavy footsteps echo from the stairwell. Not the quick climb of someone in a hurry, but the measured pace of something that knows exactly where it's going and has all the time in the world to get there. The footsteps reach the 2nd floor, then the 3rd. They stop directly outside apartment 3B. The door swings open without anyone touching it. The thing has to bend nearly in half to fit through the doorway. Its head scrapes the ceiling as it straightens, and I hear plaster cracking under the pressure. I should run. Every instinct screams at me to find another exit, to break a window, to do anything except stand here staring at something that shouldn't exist. But I can't move. My legs have locked in place, muscles refusing to respond to my commands. The entity's face is the worst part. It's not monstrous or alien. It's perfectly human. Too perfectly human. Like someone had taken every face I've ever seen and blended them into one composite image that hits every note of familiarity without being anyone I actually recognize. It looks at me with eyes that might be brown or blue or green, shifting between colors like oil on water. When it speaks, its mouth doesn't move. But I hear the words inside my skull. Floyd Singh, The entity's voice fills my skull like water poured into a glass, each word settling into spaces I didn't know existed. Floyd Singh, 34 years old, 8 years patrol, 6 months dispatch. Married to Maria Elena Singh, née Rodriguez, for 4 years. No children, though you've been trying for 2. My legs have turned to concrete. I can't even shift my weight from one foot to the other. The thing's face keeps changing. Not dramatically, just subtle shifts in the bone structure, the spacing of features, like watching someone age and regress in fast forward. You believe protocols save people, follow the right procedure, dispatch the right units, say the right words. But Mildred Kelly didn't need procedure. She needed someone to believe her story. The face shifts again. For a split second, I see an elderly woman with silver hair and frightened eyes. Lisa Reyes didn't need protocol either. She needed immediate action, someone willing to break rules for her safety. Another shift. A young Hispanic woman, exhausted but determined. And Fern Harvey? She needed understanding. Someone who could see the pattern instead of filing another routine report. The face becomes younger, angular, with ink-stained fingers that shouldn't be visible but somehow are. But you gave them all the same thing. Procedure, protocol, the illusion that following rules creates safety. I try to speak, to defend myself, but my throat is closed completely. The entity steps closer, its head scraping more plaster from the ceiling. You came here tonight because you need to be the hero, the protector, the one who saves people instead of just taking their calls and hoping someone else handles the real work. The words hit like physical blows. How does it know about the shooting? About why I'm stuck behind a desk instead of out on patrol where I belong? Officer Martinez called for backup that night on 5th Street. You heard the desperation in his voice, the fear. You followed protocol then, too. Waited for additional units instead of responding immediately. My partner's face flashes in my mind. Danny Martinez, 26 years old, married with a baby on the way. The bullet caught him in the chest while he waited for backup that arrived 3 minutes too late. 3 minutes. That's how long protocol cost him. 3 minutes of following procedure while he bled out behind that convenience store. The entity's face shifts one more time, and I'm looking at Danny. Not as he is now, scarred and walking with a cane, but as he was that night, young and confident and trusting me to make the right call. You need to prove you can still protect people. That's why you're here instead of at your desk where you belong. That's why you broke every rule to chase after Fern Harvey's voice. I want to deny it, but the words ring true in a way that makes my chest ache. I did come here to prove something. To myself, to Maria, to everyone who looks at me and sees the cop who couldn't save his partner. But you can't save anyone, Floyd. You never could. The system you trust, the protocols you follow, they're designed to create the illusion of safety while real threats move freely. The entity spreads its arms wide, and I see that its reach spans the entire width of the apartment. Those impossibly long limbs could wrap around me twice. I leave you alive because survival carries more torment than disappearance. You'll know they reached out to you. Know you failed them all. Know that Maria might be next on the list. The mention of my wife's name breaks something loose in my chest. Don't. She works late shifts at the hospital. Walks to her car alone through that parking garage. So many dark corners where someone might be waiting. So many reasons she might need to call for help. The entity's face settles into features I recognize. Maria's warm brown eyes, her gentle smile, the small scar on her chin from a childhood accident. But wrong. Stretched and distorted like a photograph pulled out of shape. When she calls, you'll answer. You'll follow protocol. You'll dispatch units that will find nothing but an empty parking space and security footage that shows her walking alone. I try to lunge forward to attack this thing that's threatening my wife, but my body won't respond. I'm trapped inside my own skin, forced to listen as it describes my worst nightmare. The beauty of the pattern, Floyd, is that it never truly ends. Each call creates the next. Each failure feeds the hunger. Each protocol followed leads to another empty house, another missing person report that nobody follows up on. The apartment begins to fade around the edges, like someone is slowly turning down the lights. The entity's voice grows distant but somehow more intimate, speaking directly into the center of my brain. Remember this moment. Remember how helpless you feel. Remember that all your training, all your procedures, all your desperate need to protect people, none of it matters when real threats come calling. The darkness swallows everything. I wake up slumped over the steering wheel of my Honda, neck stiff and mouth tasting like copper. Sunlight streams through the windshield, making me squint as I lift my head. The dispatch center parking lot surrounds me. My car sits in its usual spot, keys dangling from the ignition. According to the dashboard clock, it's 6:17 a.m. I have no memory of driving back here. My shift ended at 6 a.m., which means my replacement has been covering for me for 17 minutes. I stumble out of the car on unsteady legs and walk toward the building, trying to piece together what happened after I left for Woodland Avenue. Did I go there at all? The whole thing feels like a dream now, too strange and impossible to be real. Maybe I fell asleep at my desk and dreamed the entire sequence. Maybe the stress of the job finally caught up with me. But my clothes smell like dust and old plaster. Supervisor Williams meets me at the door, his expression somewhere between concerned and annoyed. "Singh, where the hell have you been? Peterson's been covering your calls for the past 20 minutes. The words stick in my throat. How do I explain that I abandoned my post to chase after a caller who might not exist? I got sick, had to step outside. For 20 minutes? Without telling anyone? I'm sorry. It won't happen again." Williams studies my face, probably noting the confusion and exhaustion written there. "You look like hell. Go home, get some sleep. We'll talk about this later." I nod and head for my car, but Williams calls after me. "Singh, that weird call you flagged last night, the Harvey woman? It reviewed the audio file." My blood turns cold. What did they find? Nothing but static interference. Probably a prank call or equipment malfunction. Happens sometimes with old phone lines. Static interference. Just like Mildred Kelly's call. Just like Lisa Reyes. What about the dispatch logs? Did we send units to Woodland Avenue? Williams frowns. What units? There's no record of any dispatch to that address last night. And before you ask, Mills and Kowalski haven't been on duty for 3 weeks. They're both on vacation. The parking lot tilts sideways. I grab the hood of my car to steady myself. "You sure you're okay, Singh? You're talking like you don't remember your own shift." I force myself to nod. "Just tired. Long night." But as I drive home through morning traffic, fragments of memory surface like pieces of a broken mirror. The empty apartment, the cell phone on the windowsill, the entity's face shifting between victims, the promise that Maria might be next. I pull into my driveway and sit in the car for 10 minutes, staring at our small house with its blue shutters and the garden Maria planted last spring. Everything looks normal, safe, like the kind of place where nothing bad could ever happen. But I know better now. I know that safety is an illusion, that protocols are just words on paper, and that some threats exist beyond any system designed to stop them. I know that somewhere out there, an entity that feeds on desperation is listening to every 911 call, waiting for the next voice to cry out for help. And I know that when Maria's voice joins that chorus, I'll be powerless to save her, just like I was powerless to save all the others. I stare at the incident report on my computer screen, cursor blinking in the notes field like a heartbeat. What am I supposed to write? That I abandoned my post to chase a phantom caller? That I found an empty apartment that somehow contained evidence of a conversation that never happened according to our logs? The truth sounds insane even to me. I type. Caller reported suspicious activity. Units dispatched found no evidence of disturbance. Unable to re-establish contact with reporting party. Standard language for a standard report. Nothing about 8-foot-tall figures or voices that know too much about my personal life. Nothing about apartments that change size or patrol cars that vanish from existence. I hit submit and watch the report disappear into the database where it will join thousands of other routine calls that nobody ever looks at twice. My hands shake as I reach for my coffee. The mug is empty, has been for hours, but I keep lifting it to my lips anyway. Muscle memory from a job that suddenly feels foreign. Peterson glances over from the next workstation. You look like you've seen a ghost. The words hit closer to home than he knows. Long night. Tell me about it. Had 3 domestic calls and a drunk driver who insisted his car was being controlled by aliens. He laughs, but it sounds forced. Sometimes I wonder what's in the water around here. I want to ask him if he's ever taken calls that ended in static. If he's ever had callers describe impossible things with perfect clarity. But the question would mark me as someone who's lost his grip on reality. Instead, I nod and pretend to review another report. The phone rings at my station. I reach for it automatically, then freeze with my hand inches from the receiver. What if it's another one? What if someone else is calling to report a figure that's too tall for the streetlights? The ringing continues. Peterson looks at me expectantly. I pick up the phone. 911. What's your emergency? My neighbor's dog has been barking for 3 hours straight. The caller sounds annoyed but normal. Completely, blessedly normal. I think something might be wrong. I take the information and dispatch a unit for a welfare check. Standard procedure for a standard call. The kind of problem that has solutions. But my relief only lasts until the next call, and the one after that. Each ring makes my stomach clench. Each voice makes me listen for undertones of impossible knowledge. By the time my shift ends, I've taken 47 calls. Fender benders, noise complaints, a gas leak, 2 medical emergencies, normal problems with normal solutions, not one mention of figures that don't fit under streetlights. I should feel relieved. Instead, I feel like I'm waiting for the other shoe to drop. Williams approaches my desk as I'm logging out. Singh, you got a minute? I follow him to his office, a cramped space that smells like coffee and stress. He closes the door and settles behind his desk with the expression of someone about to deliver bad news. I've been reviewing your recent performance reports. My stomach drops. Is there a problem? Your call handling times have increased significantly over the past month. You're asking more follow-up questions, keeping callers on the line longer than necessary. He pulls out a folder thick with printouts. Last night alone, you had 3 calls that exceeded standard duration by more than 5 minutes. I think about Mildred Kelly, describing arms that hung wrong. Lisa Reyes, terrified by shadows that were too big for the space. Fern Harvey, who knew things she shouldn't know. I was being thorough. Thorough is good. Obsessive is problematic. Williams leans forward. Look, I know the transition from patrol to dispatch hasn't been easy. It's a different kind of stress, different responsibilities. But you can't treat every call like a potential homicide. The irony would be funny if it weren't so bitter. I'm the only one who recognizes actual threats, and I'm being criticized for taking them seriously. I understand. Do you? Because I'm also hearing reports that you left your post last night without authorization. That's grounds for suspension, Singh. I meet his eyes and see something there that surprises me. Relief, like he's been waiting for an excuse to have this conversation. I made a mistake. Yeah, you did, and I'm starting to think this job isn't the right fit for you. He closes the folder. Maybe it's time to consider other options. The words hang in the air between us. He's not firing me, not yet. But he's opening the door for me to walk through it voluntarily. I think about sitting in this chair for another 6 months, taking calls from people who need help I can't provide, listening for static that means someone else has vanished without a trace, waiting for the phone to ring with Maria's voice on the other end. I'd like to submit my resignation. Williams doesn't look surprised. Effective when? Today. He nods and pulls out a form. I'll need you to turn in your badge and access card. HR will handle the paperwork for your final paycheck. I sign the resignation letter with hands that have finally stopped shaking. 2 weeks ago, this job was my lifeline. The thing that kept me connected to law enforcement after the shooting destroyed my confidence. Now it feels like a trap I'm lucky to escape. For what it's worth, Singh, you're a good man, just not cut out for this particular kind of work. I want to tell him he's wrong, that I'm exactly cut out for this work because I'm the only one who recognizes what we're really dealing with. But that would sound like the ramblings of someone who's lost touch with reality. Thank you for the opportunity. I clean out my desk in 10 minutes. There isn't much to take. A coffee mug, a small plant Maria bought me, a photo of us from our wedding day. The personal items that make a workspace feel human. Peterson watches me pack. Where are you headed? Not sure yet. Maybe private security. Well, if you ever want to grab a beer and complain about the job, you know where to find me. I shake his hand and walk out of the dispatch center for the last time. The afternoon sun feels too bright after months of night shifts, and I have to squint as I cross the parking lot to my car. The drive home takes 20 minutes through neighborhoods that look different in daylight. Normal, safe, like the kind of places where the worst thing that happens is a barking dog or a fender bender. I know better now. Maria's car sits in our driveway, which means she's home early from her shift at the hospital. I find her in the kitchen, still wearing scrubs, stirring something that smells like tomato sauce. You're home early, she says without turning around. I quit. The spoon stops moving. She turns to face me, and I see the careful neutrality in her expression, the look she gets when she's trying not to react to something that worries her. What happened? I want to tell her everything. About the calls that ended in static. About apartments that exist and don't exist simultaneously. About entities that know our names and addresses and the specific ways we're vulnerable. Instead, I say, it wasn't working out. She studies my face like she's reading a medical chart. Are you okay? The question has too many layers. Am I okay mentally? Physically? Emotionally? The honest answer to all of them is no, but I can't explain why without sounding like I've had a complete break from reality. I'm fine. Just need a change. Maria nods, but I can see the questions she's not asking. We've been married 4 years, and she knows when I'm holding something back, but she also knows when to push and when to wait. Well, I'm glad you're home. I missed you. She steps into my arms, and I hold her tighter than I have in months. She feels solid and real and safe, and for a moment I can almost convince myself that the past few weeks were just stress-induced hallucinations. But her warmth also reminds me of the entity's final words, about parking garages and dark corners and reasons she might need to call for help. I hold her until the sauce starts to burn. The next 2 weeks pass in a strange kind of normalcy. I apply for security positions, update my resume, pretend that leaving dispatch was a career decision rather than an escape from something I couldn't handle. Maria doesn't ask many questions, but I catch her watching me sometimes with the expression she gets when she's worried about a patient's prognosis, like she's waiting for symptoms to manifest. I sleep better without the night shifts, but the dreams are worse. I keep seeing faces that shift and change, hearing voices that know too much about my life. I wake up checking the locks on our doors and windows, making sure the security system is armed. Maria notices but doesn't comment. She's good at giving people space to heal in their own time. On a Tuesday morning, I'm drinking coffee and scrolling through job listings when the doorbell rings. Maria left for work an hour ago, and we're not expecting any deliveries. I look through the peephole but don't see anyone. Just our front porch and the street beyond, empty except for a few parked cars. The doorbell rings again. I open the door cautiously, keeping the chain lock engaged. Nobody there. But on the welcome mat sits a manila envelope with no return address. No postmark, no indication of how it arrived. My name is written on the front in handwriting that looks familiar but wrong, like someone trying to copy a signature they've seen but don't quite remember. I bring the envelope inside and set it on the kitchen table. It's thin, containing what feels like a single photograph. Every instinct tells me not to open it, to throw it away unopened, maybe burn it in the backyard fire pit. But I know that won't make whatever's inside go away. I tear open the envelope. The photograph shows our house at night, taken from across the street. The angle suggests someone standing under the streetlight, looking toward our front windows. Maria's silhouette is visible in our living room window, reading on the couch like she does every evening. The image is clear enough to show the book in her hands, the way she tucks her feet under herself when she's comfortable. But beside her silhouette, stretching beyond the frame of the window, is another shadow, impossibly tall, with proportions that hurt to look at directly, arms that hang past where knees should be, a head that scrapes the ceiling of our living room. Maria shows no awareness of the presence beside her. She's reading peacefully while something that shouldn't exist stands close enough to touch her. I flip the photograph over. Written on the back in the same impossible handwriting are 4 words: "Some calls never end." My hands shake as I set the photo down. The kitchen feels smaller suddenly, like the walls are pressing inward. I check every window, every door, every possible entry point. Everything is locked, everything is secure, everything is exactly as it should be, but security is an illusion. Locks are just metal and wood. Protocols are just words on paper. I understand now what the entity meant about being left alive to carry the weight of knowing. Death would be mercy compared to this. Living with the certainty that something is watching, waiting, choosing its moment. I can't call the police. What would I tell them? That I received a photograph of my own house with an impossible shadow in it? They'd file a report and forget about it within an hour. I can't warn Maria without sounding insane. How do you explain that something exists beyond any system designed to protect us? That the very act of calling for help might be what draws it closer? I can't run. Where would we go? The entity has appeared throughout history, adapting to whatever communication technology humans develop. There's nowhere to hide from something that feeds on the moment when people most desperately need help. All I can do is wait and watch and hope that when the moment comes, when Maria sees something that shouldn't exist and reaches for the phone, I'll be fast enough to stop her, because I finally understand what all those callers learned too late. When real threats come, no protocol matters. No procedure provides protection. No system can save you from something that exists in the spaces between what's possible and what's real. Some calls never end, and some witnesses are left alive to remember why. I stare at the photograph for 3 days before I finally accept that the police won't help me. What am I supposed to tell them? That something impossible is stalking my wife? That it left evidence in the form of a picture that shows shadows where shadows shouldn't exist? They'd file a report and forget about it within an hour, just like they forgot about Mildred Kelly and Lisa Reyes and all the others. So instead of calling for help, I do what I should have done weeks ago. I start digging. The internet is full of garbage when you search for terms like impossible figures and emergency call disappearances. Conspiracy theories, urban legends, creepypasta stories written by teenagers who think they understand horror. But buried beneath the noise, I find fragments that make my skin crawl. A forum post from Detroit dated 6 months ago. Anyone else notice how many dispatchers have quit lately? 3 in my district alone, all citing personal reasons. Weird coincidence. A news article from Phoenix about a 911 operator who walked away from her job mid-shift and was found 3 days later wandering downtown with no memory of how she got there. A Reddit thread discussing phantom calls that end in static, with dozens of comments from emergency workers who've experienced the same thing, but never reported it officially. Each lead takes me deeper into a rabbit hole of dismissed reports and unexplained incidents. The pattern is always the same. Emergency workers who encounter something they can't explain, then either disappear or quit suddenly, leaving behind colleagues who rationalize away the strangeness. I'm printing my 4th page of notes when Maria comes home from her shift. She finds me surrounded by papers, laptop open to a forum discussing entities that feed on desperation. Floyd? Her voice carries the careful tone she uses with patients who might be having psychological episodes. What's all this? I close the laptop screen. Research. Research into what? The honest answer would sound insane. The safe answer feels like a betrayal of everyone who tried to warn me. Job hunting, security consulting. She nods, but I catch her glancing at the papers scattered across our dining table. I've been careful to print everything, to avoid leaving digital traces, but some of the headlines are visible. Telegraph operators report impossible encounters and radiostatic patterns in wartime communications. Not exactly typical security consulting material. I'm going to take a shower, she says. Maybe we could order pizza tonight? Actually spend some time together instead of you buried in paperwork? That sounds good. But after she heads upstairs, I keep reading. Because buried in all the dismissed reports and urban legends, I'm starting to see something that looks like hope. A name that appears in multiple sources. Detective Harrison, formerly of the County Sheriff's Department, now working private investigations. According to 3 different forum posts, he's the only law enforcement officer who takes these reports seriously. I find his number through a private investigator's website. The phone rings 4 times before a gravelly voice answers. Harrison. Detective Harrison? My name is Floyd Singh. I'm a former police officer, and I need to ask you about some unusual 911 calls. Silence stretches long enough that I wonder if he's hung up. You work dispatch? Used to. I quit 2 weeks ago. Let me guess. Calls that ended in static. Callers who described things that shouldn't exist. Empty houses where people should have been. My grip tightens on the phone. You know about this. I know about a lot of things I wish I didn't. Meet me tomorrow at Mel's Diner on Route 9, 2 o'clock. Come alone. The line goes dead. I spend the rest of the evening pretending to watch television with Maria while my mind races through possibilities. Harrison could be a crank. Another conspiracy theorist who's built elaborate fantasies around coincidental events. Or he could be the first person who actually understands what I've been dealing with. Either way, I have to find out. Mel's Diner sits on a stretch of highway that time forgot. All cracked vinyl booths and coffee that tastes like it was brewed during the Carter administration. I arrive 10 minutes early and choose a corner booth where I can watch the parking lot. Harrison walks in at exactly 2 o'clock. He's older than I expected, maybe 60, with gray hair and the kind of weathered face that comes from seeing too much. He spots me immediately and slides into the opposite side of the booth. You look like hell, Singh. Thanks. You're not exactly a ray of sunshine yourself. He signals the waitress for coffee. How many calls did you take before you figured out something was wrong? 3. Maybe 4 if you count the one that made me quit. Fast learner. Most dispatchers take a dozen before they start seeing the pattern. He studies my face. But you're not most dispatchers, are you? You were patrol before this. 8 years. That explains it. Street cops develop instincts about when things don't add up. Dispatchers just follow protocols. He accepts a cup of coffee from the waitress and waits until she's out of earshot. Tell me about your calls. I describe Mildred Kelly, Lisa Reyes, Fern Harvey, The impossible descriptions, the static interference, the empty houses. Harrison listens without interruption, occasionally nodding like he's heard it all before. 3 other dispatchers in neighboring counties reported similar experiences, he says when I finish. All of them quit within a month. 2 moved out of state. The third one. What happened to the third one? Sarah Martinez, 26 years old, worked dispatch for the county for 3 years, started reporting weird calls in January. By March, she was convinced something was stalking her through the phone system. Harrison's expression darkens. She disappeared on a Tuesday night, left her apartment like she was going to the store. Never came back. My coffee tastes like ash. Any leads? None that make sense. Security footage shows her walking to her car alone. She drives out of the parking garage and then nothing. Car was found 3 days later in a Walmart parking lot 50 miles away. Keys in the ignition, purse on the passenger seat, no signs of struggle. But you think it's connected? I think Sarah Martinez called for help 1 too many times. Harrison leans forward. There's someone you need to meet, Dr. Sylvia Chen. She's been researching this phenomenon for 15 years. What kind of doctor? The kind who studies things that aren't supposed to exist. He slides a business card across the table. Dr. Sylvia Chen, Paranormal Research Institute. The address is local, maybe 20 minutes from here. She's expecting you at 4 o'clock. Don't be late, and don't bring anyone with you. Why not? Because the more people who know about this thing, the more attention it gets. And trust me, Singh, you don't want its attention. But I already have its attention. The eyes stare at the telegraph operator's journal until the words blur together. But one passage keeps pulling me back like a magnet. The thing took my beloved Sarah on the night she called for the constable about strange sounds in our garden. I have since learned through terrible experience that it cannot claim those who do not cry out for aid. This knowledge has become both my salvation and my curse, for I must watch others make the same fatal mistake while appearing mad to any who might listen. The operator, Thomas Whitmore, according to the faded signature, spent the rest of his life trying to warn people. His later entries describe encounters with neighbors, friends, even strangers on the street. All of them dismissed him as a grief-stricken man who'd lost his grip on reality. But he was right. The entity feeds on the moment when people reach out for help, when they abandon self-reliance and trust in systems designed to protect them. It can't take someone who doesn't call. The problem is making Maria understand this without her thinking I've had a complete psychological break. I close the journal and look around our living room. Maria's reading on the couch, feet tucked under herself, completely absorbed in some medical thriller. She looks peaceful, safe, normal. How do you tell someone that normalcy is a trap? That the very act of calling for help might be what destroys them? Hey, I say, settling beside her. Hypothetical question. She marks her place with a finger. Okay. If you saw someone suspicious outside our house, what would you do? Call the police. Why? The answer comes so automatically, so reasonably that my chest tightens. What if the phones weren't working? Use my cell phone. What if that wasn't working either? Maria sets down her book and studies my face. Floyd, what's this about? I've been trying this approach for 3 days now. Hypothetical scenarios, gentle suggestions about self-reliance, casual mentions of how unreliable emergency services can be. Each attempt makes her more concerned about my mental state. Just thinking about home security. Maybe we should get some cameras, motion sensors, be more self-sufficient. We live in a safe neighborhood. The most exciting thing that happens here is Mrs. Patterson's cat getting stuck in trees. She's right, of course. Our street is the kind of place where people leave their doors unlocked and kids ride bikes until dark. The kind of place where calling 911 is a reasonable response to threats. Which makes it perfect hunting ground for something that feeds on reasonable responses. I know. I just think it's good to be prepared. Maria nods. but I catch the look she gives me, the same expression she gets when evaluating patients who might need psychiatric consultation. Concerned but professional, loving but cautious. I'm losing her trust with every conversation. That night I wake to find her side of the bed empty. The sheets are still warm, so she hasn't been gone long. I check the bathroom, then pad downstairs in bare feet. I find her in the living room, standing by the front window with the cordless phone in her hand. She's wearing the oversized t-shirt she sleeps in, hair messy from the pillow, but her posture is alert, listening. "Maria?" She turns, finger hovering over the keypad. There's someone outside. I heard footsteps on the porch, then scratching at the door. My blood turns to ice. Don't. Don't what? Don't call. She stares at me like I've spoken in a foreign language. "Floyd, someone is trying to break into our house." I move toward her slowly, hands visible like she's a spooked animal. "Please, just put the phone down." "Are you insane? I'm calling 911. Her finger moves toward the 9, and I lunge forward, grabbing the phone from her hands. She stumbles backward, eyes wide with shock and something that might be fear. "Floyd, what the hell?" "You can't call them." I clutch the phone against my chest. "You can't call anyone." "Give me the phone." "Maria, please, I know how this sounds, but you have to trust me." She backs toward the kitchen, probably looking for her cell phone. "You're scaring me." The words hit like a physical blow. My wife is afraid of me. The person I'm supposed to protect thinks I'm the threat. "I'm not going to hurt you. I would never hurt you. But if you call 911, something terrible will happen. Something terrible is already happening. My husband has lost his mind." I set the phone on the coffee table and raise my hands. "I'm going to show you something. Don't run, don't call anyone, just look." I retrieve the manila envelope from my desk drawer, the one that arrived with no postmark or return address. My hands shake as I pull out the photograph. This was taken 3 weeks ago. Look at the window. Maria takes the photo reluctantly, squinting in the dim light from the street. I watch her face change as she processes what she's seeing, her own silhouette reading peacefully while something impossible stands beside her. This is fake. Photoshopped. Look at the back. She flips it over and reads the 4 words written there. Her face goes pale. Someone's playing a sick joke. It's not a joke. I pull out the journal, the printed forum posts, the timeline I've constructed. There's something out there that feeds on emergency calls. It targets people who reach out for help. Maria sets the photograph on the table like it might bite her. "Floyd, you need professional help. I know how it sounds, but look at the evidence. Look at the pattern." She glances at the papers scattered across our coffee table. Months of research into disappearances, forum posts from emergency workers, historical accounts of similar phenomena. To her, it probably looks like the obsessive documentation of someone having a breakdown. "Even if this were real," she says carefully, "why would it target us? We're nobody special." "Because I used to work dispatch. Because I took calls from its victims. Because I know what it is." A sound from outside makes us both freeze. Footsteps on the front porch, slow and deliberate. Then a soft scratching at the door, like fingernails dragging across wood. Maria's hand moves instinctively toward her phone. I catch her wrist. "Don't. Someone is trying to break in." I know. But calling for help is what it wants. The scratching continues, patient and rhythmic. Not the frantic clawing of someone trying to force entry, but something more deliberate. Like it's announcing its presence. "What do we do?" Maria whispers. "We wait. We don't call anyone. We handle this ourselves." "Handle what?" "We don't even have a gun." I move to the front window and peer through the blinds. The porch is empty, but I can see a shadow stretching across the wooden boards. a shadow that's too long and too tall to belong to anything human. The scratching stops. Maria joins me at the window, staying carefully to one side. I don't see anyone. It's there. Where? I point to the shadow, but even as I watch, it begins to fade. Not moving away, just dissolving like smoke. It's gone, Maria says. But I know better. It's not gone. It's waiting, testing us, seeing if we'll break and reach for the phone. We stand by the window for another hour, watching the empty porch and listening to the normal sounds of night. A car passing on the street, wind in the trees, the distant hum of the highway. Nothing that shouldn't be there. Finally, Maria speaks. I don't believe you. Not completely. But I saw that shadow and I can't explain it. That's enough. Is it? Because if you're right, we can never call for help again. Ever. No matter what happens. The weight of that reality settles between us. No 911 calls, no police reports, no ambulances if one of us gets hurt. Complete self-reliance in a world designed around interconnected safety nets. We'll figure it out, I say. Will we? What if there's a fire? What if someone breaks in with a gun? What if I have a heart attack? Each scenario hits like a punch to the gut. I've been so focused on the immediate threat that I haven't fully considered the long-term implications. We'll be careful. We'll prepare for emergencies ourselves. Maria nods slowly. Okay, but I want security cameras, motion sensors, anything that might give us warning without requiring outside help. I'll install them tomorrow. And if I see something I can't explain, I come to you first, no matter how crazy it seems. Promise? Promise. But Floyd? She turns to face me fully. If you're wrong about this, if you're having some kind of breakdown, I need you to get help. Real help. And if I'm right, then we figure out how to live with it. The next morning, I drive to 3 different electronics stores, buying security equipment with cash. Wireless cameras, motion detectors, door and window sensors. Nothing that requires professional installation or monitoring services. I spend the day running cables and mounting cameras, creating a network that covers every approach to our house. The motion sensors go on the porch, the back deck, the side yard, the door sensors on every entrance. Maria watches me work with the expression of someone who's not sure if her husband is protecting them or having an elaborate delusion. But she doesn't try to stop me. Will this actually help? She asks as I test the final camera. Probably not. But it makes me feel like I'm doing something. That's honest, at least. The system works perfectly. Every sensor connects to a central monitor in our bedroom. Any movement within 50 feet of the house will trigger alerts on multiple devices. But as I watch the feeds that night, 6 different angles of our property, all showing nothing but empty yard and quiet street, I know the cameras are just security theater. If the entity wants to reach us, it won't be stopped by motion sensors or wireless alerts. The real protection is simpler and more terrifying. We can never call for help, no matter what we see outside our windows, no matter what sounds we hear in the night, no matter how desperate or afraid we become. We're on our own now. Maria falls asleep around midnight, but I stay awake watching the monitors. The feeds show our house from every angle. Front porch, backyard, side windows, driveway. Everything looks normal. But normal is what scares me most, because I know that somewhere out there something is watching us back, waiting for the moment when our resolve breaks and we reach for the phone, the moment when we forget that some calls never. 3 months of quiet feels like holding your breath underwater. You know you'll have to surface eventually, but the longer you stay down, the more terrifying that first gasp becomes. I found work as a security guard at a corporate office complex, the kind of place where the biggest emergency is someone forgetting their key card. Night shifts, minimal human contact, no emergency response duties. Perfect for someone who can't afford to be anywhere near a 911 call. Maria adapted better than I expected. She switched to day shifts at the hospital, claiming she wanted more normal hours. We both knew the real reason. Night shifts meant walking alone through parking garages, and parking garages meant dark corners where someone might be waiting. Our house became a fortress of routine. Security cameras recording empty yards, motion sensors that never triggered, door alarms that stayed silent. Every morning I checked the feeds, and every morning they showed nothing but suburban normalcy. But I caught Maria staring at the monitors sometimes, her expression unreadable. 3 months of self-imposed isolation was wearing on her in ways she wouldn't admit. "Mrs. Patterson's cat is stuck in the oak tree again," she said one evening, pointing through our kitchen window. I looked across the yard to where our elderly neighbor stood beneath the massive tree, calling up to an orange tabby that had no intention of coming down. "She'll figure it out. She's 78 years old, Floyd, and Mr. Patterson has that heart condition." The words hung between us like a challenge. Before, we would have walked over to help, offered to call the fire department if needed, been good neighbors. Now we watched through glass while Mrs. Patterson struggled with a ladder that looked older than she was. "We could go help," Maria said quietly. "What if something happens? What if Mr. Patterson has another episode while we're there? Then we handle it ourselves." But we both knew that was impossible. You can't perform CPR on someone having a massive coronary and expect good results. Some emergencies require professional help, whether you want to call for it or not. Mrs. Patterson gave up on the ladder and went back inside. The cat remained in the tree, looking smug about the whole situation. "This isn't living," Maria said. "This is just existing." I wanted to argue, but she was right. We'd traded our lives for the illusion of safety. No friends over for dinner because we couldn't risk them calling 911 if something happened. No trips beyond walking distance because car accidents require emergency services. No real connection to the world beyond our carefully monitored perimeter. I know. Do you? Because sometimes I think you prefer it this way. No responsibilities beyond yourself. No chance of failing someone who needs help. The words hit like a slap. That's not fair, isn't it? You've been running from that shooting for almost a year. First hiding behind dispatch protocols, now hiding behind this paranoia about phone calls. It's not paranoia if it's real. Is it real, Floyd? Or is it easier to believe in monsters than to face the fact that sometimes good people get hurt despite our best efforts? I stared at her across our kitchen table. This woman I'd married 4 years ago who used to trust my judgment completely. Now she looked at me like I was a patient whose prognosis remained uncertain. "You saw the photograph. You heard the scratching." "I saw something I couldn't explain." "That doesn't mean your explanation is correct." The conversation ended there, like most of our conversations did now. With doubt hanging in the air and neither of us willing to push hard enough to shatter what remained of our relationship. 2 weeks later, Mrs. Patterson's frantic pounding on our front door shattered everything anyway. "Please," she sobbed through the wood. "Harold collapsed. I can't get him to wake up. My phone isn't working." I stood frozen in our hallway, hand on the deadbolt, while Mrs. Patterson's desperate voice cut through every defense I'd built. "Please, I know you're home. I can see your lights. Harold needs help." Maria appeared beside me, still in her scrubs from the hospital. Her face was pale but determined. "We have to help them. If we call 911, then we call 911. We can't let Mr. Patterson die because we're afraid of something that might not even be real." Through the peephole, I could see Mrs. Patterson's tear-streaked face. Behind her, the front door of their house stood open, spilling yellow light across their porch. "Floyd," Maria's voice was steady. "Open the door." I turned the deadbolt. Mrs. Patterson stumbled inside, clutching my arm with surprising strength. He was watching television, and then he just fell over. I tried to call 911, but the phone line is dead. My cell phone, too. Nothing works. The familiar pattern made my stomach clench. phones that stop working right when people need them most. But Mr. Patterson was real, and he was dying while I stood here paralyzed by fear. "Where is he?" Maria asked. "Living room, on the floor by his chair." Maria was already moving toward the door. "Floyd, call 911. I'm going to check on Harold." She disappeared into the night before I could stop her. Mrs. Patterson followed, leaving me alone in our hallway with the cordless phone in my hand. I could hear Maria's voice from across the yard, calm and professional as she assessed Mr. Patterson's condition. She was doing what she'd trained for, what she was good at, helping people. I dialed 911. 911, what's your emergency? The dispatcher's voice sounded normal, professional, human, no hint of impossible knowledge or otherworldly awareness. "I need paramedics at 1251 Elm Street. Elderly male, possible cardiac event. Unconscious but breathing. Units are en route. Can you stay on the line?" Static crackled through the connection. Not the rhythmic breathing I'd heard before, but normal interference, the kind that happens with old phone lines and electrical storms. "Sir, are you still there?" "I'm here. Paramedics should arrive in approximately 4 minutes. Is the patient responsive?" I looked across the yard to where Maria knelt beside Mr. Patterson, checking his pulse and airway. Mrs. Patterson hovered nearby, wringing her hands. "My wife is with him now. She's a nurse." "Excellent. Please keep the line open until units arrive." The static continued, but it sounded like normal radio interference. No pattern, no rhythm, no sense of something listening from the other end. 4 minutes later, an ambulance pulled up with lights flashing, but no siren. 2 paramedics jumped out and jogged across the yard with their equipment. I watched from our front porch as they worked on Mr. Patterson. Maria stepped back to give them room, but stayed close enough to answer questions about his condition. Professional to professional. After 10 minutes, they had him stabilized and loaded onto a stretcher. Mrs. Patterson climbed into the ambulance, clutching her husband's hand. Maria walked back across the yard as the ambulance pulled away. Her scrubs were grass-stained at the knees and her hair had come loose from its ponytail. "How is he?" "Stable. Looks like a mild heart attack, but they caught it in time." She studied my face. "You called." "I called. And? Normal dispatch, normal response, normal outcome." We stood on our front porch, watching the ambulance's taillights disappear around the corner. The street returned to its usual quiet, streetlights casting familiar shadows that stayed exactly where shadows should be. "Maybe it's over," Maria said. "Maybe." But I knew better. The entity's greatest weapon wasn't the threat of immediate attack. It was the uncertainty. The knowledge that it might be watching, might be waiting, might appear the moment we let our guard down. We'd made the call. We'd helped our neighbor. We'd done the right thing. Now we had to live with the consequences. That night, we flooded our house with light. Every lamp, every overhead fixture, every decorative bulb we owned. The electric bill would be astronomical, but darkness felt too dangerous. We positioned ourselves in the living room where we could see every window and door. Maria sat on the couch with a medical textbook, pretending to read. I took the chair by the front window, watching the street for movement that shouldn't be there. Hours passed. Midnight came and went. The security cameras showed empty yards and quiet streets. The motion sensors stayed silent. At 3 a.m., Maria finally spoke. "How long do we wait?" "Until dawn." "And then what? Do this again tomorrow night? And the night after that?" I didn't have an answer. We couldn't live like this indefinitely, hypervigilant, isolated, afraid of our own shadows. But we also couldn't pretend the threat didn't exist. "We'll figure it out." Will we? Or will we just keep existing in this limbo until one of us breaks? The question hung in the air between us, because she was right. This wasn't sustainable. We were alive but not living, safe but not free. Dawn broke gray and ordinary. Sunlight crept across our yard, revealing nothing more threatening than Mrs. Patterson's cat, finally down from the oak tree and stalking something in the flower beds. We'd survived the night. Mr. Patterson was alive because we'd called for help. We'd done the right thing and faced no immediate consequences. But as I watched the sunrise paint our neighborhood in shades of normal, I understood the entity's most insidious torture. We would never know if it was coming. Every day would be a question mark. Every night a fearful watch. We were alive, but we weren't living. We were safe, but we weren't free. And the worst part was knowing that the next time someone needed help, the next time we had to choose between calling 911 and watching someone die, we'd make the same choice. Because that's what good people do. They help, even when helping might destroy them. The entity didn't need to appear to win. It just needed us to know it might. Some prisons don't have bars. Some traps don't need to close. Sometimes the cruelest punishment is being left alive to wonder when the real suffering will begin.